Hi, I'm Valerie Mah, and I was a teacher and became a school principal, but now after 44 years I am retired, and among the many things that I do, I have had the honor of becoming the president of the Retired Teachers of Ontario Charitable Foundation. When I was very young, I was born in Brockville, Ontario, where my family had a laundry and then a restaurant, which we operated for over 55 years. But actually, I got into teaching by default. When I was growing up in a small town, I was helping to work in a restaurant, and I did things like sang in a choir and belonged to Girl Guides and learned how to play piano because I knew that piano meant that I could have a subject to go to school. And I thought, perhaps I could be an occupational therapist. But then I discovered that I didn't have enough marks to get into university with my occupational therapy, so I chose teaching. And teaching meant, in those days, meant that you could go to teachers college and then do a degree part-time. I was supposed to go to Ottawa, but because my two sisters were in Toronto, I decided I'd go to Toronto. And besides, there were more Chinese there, and having grown up in a town where there were no other families, I thought that was a great opportunity. I think my favorite thing is that discovering that you've been able to make a difference. I was having supper on the Danforth just a short while ago with 3 former students, and they had been in one of my grade 2 classes. And now one was a social worker, one was an occupational therapist, and the other was a medical officer. And to hear from them the sorts of things that you might have done that made them, the fact that they're doing service careers, and to find that they're doing well even though they were living in a part of town where it's considered inner city. And it might have been taking them on a trip. We took them to see famous players, things they would not be able to see, or exposing them to things that they normally would not have seen. And to hear from them how much just little bits have made a big difference in their lives. And now they've very proudly gone on and now have careers, and to think that maybe some little bit that we did along the way made a difference. Well, I have a sad one and a happy one. So I'll start with the sad one. It was a very wintry March break, and there was a very bad car crash on the 401 on the ice, and we lost 2 students. And actually there were 3 young children killed in a car crash. And when we made the discovery that they were our former students, I had the social worker call all the Chinese parents, and I called the English parents, and we went through a whole process of supporting the students. And then in order to help the children with this grieving process, the teacher had raised caterpillars in their classroom. And we developed a community butterfly garden in front of the school. And in May, we had a ceremony and released the caterpillars, who were now monarch butterflies. And when we released the butterflies, they all flew away, and 3 of them came back. And that was a very, very, a moment none of us will ever forget, because we saw those 3 butterflies come back. And the other one was a little different. Because of my training in special education, the lights in my office were always dimmer, because I wanted to create a school office that was friendly and would make students feel more open. And one boy was, I was told, had to go and live with his grandfather or somebody else, and he was leaving the schools. So he came in to say goodbye to me, and I was trying to think, well, what could I do to help him? And I had stuffed toys and things, or momentums around my office, and I thought, well, maybe I could see if he wanted something to remember us by. And I said, I'm going to miss you, but maybe you could take something from my office that you'll remember us whenever you go. And he looked around the office, and there was this life-size, almost life-size, big stuffed monkey. And he said, I'll take that. And even though I didn't want to say, no, 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 you can't have that, but I did. I let it go. And I thought, well, maybe someday he'll remember Mrs. Mah. And I don't know. I guess those are some of the things. Those are some of the things that you remember. And maybe we made a difference. And maybe someday if that particular student is having a bad day and he might do something wrong, he'll think Mrs. Mah might not like that. So I hope every one of the students has that chance to make a difference, and I think you each can. Ooh, if I could travel back in time to high school, I think I would have paid more attention to learning Chinese. That was my mother tongue. My parents spoke it, the staff in the restaurant spoke it, but my brothers and sisters and I, we didn't speak Chinese at home. My mother talked to me in Chinese in front of my Canadian friends when she didn't want them to know. She said one day, my friend said to me, what did your mother say in Chinese? And she said, your friend should go home. And I didn't want to tell her that. But I miss having that. I'm rather embarrassed as an adult. I didn't have Chinese school. And then I became a principal and I had Chinese parents and I didn't really understand it. I spoke a different dialect, a sort of a country dialect. But the parents corrected me and I sort of knew what they wanted to say. So if I had listened more when I was going to school, I think I would have, for sure, I should have learned my language, at least even the country dialect that I was. And my advice to young people, if you have that opportunity to learn another language, do make sure. And that came to mind very recently when one of my friends whose children went to the French immersion school where I was vice principal, she said that both of her kids had benefited from the fact that they went to French immersion. So please, please, if one word of advice I can say, make sure that you retain some language. Regrets. Yes, I do have one major regret in my life that affected me. And when I was growing up, 13 or 14, and my uncle, a bachelor uncle living in North Bay, Ontario, he was in a laundry by himself, and I used to write him letters. And he wrote to me one day and he said, you have no idea how much your letters mean to me. And unfortunately, my uncle died and no one knew he had died. My uncle, who lived in Sudbury, had to found him in the laundry by himself. And my parents went all the way to North Bay for the funeral. And I had to stay home to help look after the restaurant. And I remember crying and crying because I thought I was closer to my Uncle Charlie. And the regret was what he said. He said, you have no idea how much your letters meant to me. And I thought, I could have written him more. And that's part of what we call social isolation now, being aware of what other people do. And that regret was that I thought I could have done more and I didn't do more. So I made it a model sort of my life, that no matter what happens every day, I would try and find some little thing that might make a difference to somebody's life. And I do take a lot of pictures, and I do enjoy sharing my pictures. And when I share my pictures with other people and you see them smile, then that gives me a nice feeling. And if I go around the community in one of the Chinatowns where I do work, I really, I smile because my pictures are there making other people happy. And it's all part of being aware of the people around you and that each one of us can make a difference.
Hi, I'm Alan. Thanks for watching. I want to send a special thank you to Valerie Mah for sharing her life experiences, and also to my friend Will and my teacher, Mr. Crawford, for helping me make this documentary. Even though we're all staying at home during this difficult time, I hope by sharing this video we can all make a difference.